Black voters turn their backs on Ms. Harris and support Mr. Trump. Preston Paris, a black voter in the battleground state of Georgia, went against family tradition when he decided to vote for Mr. Trump. When I announced that I was voting for Donald Trump, a lot of people looked at me like I was crazy. I'm black, so they thought I would automatically vote for Kamala Harris. Preston Osunbasin. Paris said while attending a Donald Trump campaign event in Atlanta, Georgia, on October 21st. Paris, a 19-year-old computer science student at Georgia State University, comes from a family with a tradition of supporting the Democratic Party. But this year, he decided to go against family tradition when voting for the first time in his life. I decided based on my perception of policy and what the situation in the U.S. would be like in 4 years under Harris or Trump. I trust Mr. Trump. I like his foreign policy, as well as his economic development plan, Paris said. Georgia is one of the decisive battleground states in this year's election. In 2020, Joe Biden beat Trump by just 11,779 votes in the state, where nearly a third of the electorate is black. Recent polls in Georgia are sounding alarm bells for Harris's campaign. A survey released this week by the Atlanta Journal-Constitution found that the Democratic candidate had the support of 73.8% of black voters in Georgia, compared to Trump's 7.6%, but Harris's numbers are far lower than Biden's 88% support in 2020. A New York Times Siena College poll this month found that Harris's biggest loss of support from Biden was among black men. The survey found that 70% of black men in Georgia would vote for Harris compared to 83% of women. After the polls were released, Harris announced a program to help black people get loans to start businesses and learn trades, in an effort to restore confidence among this group of voters. Harris's campaign also invited Barack Obama, the first black president of the United States, to appear at a campaign rally in Clarkston, near Atlanta, on October 24th. Meanwhile, Republicans are trying to capitalize on black voters' frustration with Democrats to further their appeal. Dozens of people, including Paris, attended an event organized by right-wing activist Charlie Kirk and businessman Vivek Ramaswamy, a former Republican presidential candidate, at a downtown Atlanta park on October 21st. Some attendees said they did not want to support Trump, but came to hear Republicans campaign for him. Others, like Paris, were ardent Trump supporters. Trump has a plan to not tax tips, to cut taxes for big companies, which is good for people like me who want to work at corporations like Google, Paris said. He said that during Trump's term, the world has not had any new conflicts abroad, and emphasized that, "I don't want to be drafted now or in the future." Standing next to Paris was JP, a 23-year-old black college student wearing a red baseball cap with the slogan, "Make America Great Again," printed on it, which Trump often says. JP, who did not want to reveal his full name, said the U.S. economy is better under Trump. But the key thing that made him support him is his Christian faith. Many Christian conservatives thank Trump for appointing 3 justices to the Supreme Court, leading to the decision to end abortion rights nationwide in 2022. Donald Trump is a person who is consistent with the Bible. "With my faith," JP said. Jared Grant, a professor of political science at Clark Atlanta University, said black Americans no longer have unconditional support for one political party. One of the big things we're all asking ourselves is, what policies are they going to put in place for black people? What are they going to do for black peoples? Grant said. We black people are helping everyone but ourselves. Everybody's getting a share, but black people aren't getting a share. Besides, Arab voters also rejected Ms. Harris. Many Arab voters in Dearborn, Michigan, declared their backs on the Democrats and would punish Ms. Harris with their votes because of the war in Gaza, Lebanon. A tall young man stood out among the crowd gathered outside the Great Commoner restaurant in Dearborn, Michigan's battleground state, on the afternoon of November 1st. He wore a stylish hat and a Trump 2024 t-shirt and posed for a photo with the Republican Support App symbol. "My name is Hassan. I'm from Bint Jbeil," he said, referring to the town in southern Lebanon, more than 9,000 kilometers, 5,600 miles, from the United States. When asked why he voted for Trump, Hassan declared, "Because I support Trump, that's all I want to say. I don't talk about politics. I just support Trump." The crowd flocked to the Great Commoner restaurant when it was announced that Mr. Trump would be campaigning there. The Republican presidential candidate stopped in Dearborn, the most populous Arab city in the United States, amid a tight race between Trump and Harris. According to the 2020 census, 54% of Dearborn's 110,000 residents are of Middle Eastern or North African descent, showing that the Arab-American vote is decisive in the battleground state of Michigan. In the 2016 election, Hillary Clinton lost to Trump in Michigan by just 10,000 votes. 4 years later, Biden won by 150,000 votes. While rural and affluent suburbs in Michigan, where many white people live, tend to vote Republican, Dearborn has traditionally voted Democratic. However, conflicts in Gaza and Lebanon have broken down Dearborn's blue wall of Democratic support. In the final week before the November 5th election, Mr. Trump made a brief appearance at the Great Commoner, a popular restaurant in the area owned by a Lebanese-American family. He met with a small group of Arab Americans there. "We will achieve peace in the Middle East, but not through the clowns who are running America right now," he said. Mr. Trump's relationship with Arab and Muslim voters has long been tense. Shortly after his inauguration in January 2017, he signed an executive order banning citizens of several Muslim countries from entering the United States. He also announced that he would support a similar ban if re-elected this year. But with his new slogan of being a peacekeeper in the Middle East, the Republican candidate seems to have won the support of some groups of voters in the city of Dearborn, home to countless Middle Eastern-style restaurants and bakeries. A few blocks away on Michigan Avenue is Sheba, a Yemeni restaurant with 4-piece Vote Trump posters in English and Arabic plastered across its windows. Ali Al-Jahmi, a family member who owns the restaurant, said the two main reasons he supported Trump were the conflict in the Middle East and the U.S. economy. "I believe that Trump is the only one who can bring us the peace that we are yearning for," Al-Jahmi said. At a popular kebab shop on Michigan Avenue, Layla El-Abed was disappointed by the fervent support for Trump in the city known as the Arab American capital. "Have people forgotten how bad things were under Trump?" said the 35-year-old community organizer. "We've had to coordinate with emergency response teams for every policy that's come out of Trump's inauguration. I've been involved in everything from airport protests against the Muslim ban to Black Lives Matter protests to helping families threatened with deportation. Every day, we've had to come up with a quick response plan." El-Abed is disappointed, but not surprised, believing that the Democrats left the door open for Trump to campaign in a community that feels frustrated and betrayed. "I think the Harris campaign and the Democrats are to blame for allowing this to happen," she said. El-Abed said that as a co-founder of the National Uncommitted Movement, she helped Michigan Democrats vote uncommitted in the February primaries. The campaign's goal was to call on the Biden administration to impose an arms embargo on Israel until a ceasefire in Gaza was reached. The movement set a goal of 10,000 uncommitted votes, meaning no candidate, which helped Trump win Michigan in 2016. They far exceeded their goal of 100,000 votes and pushed similar campaigns in other states, with more than 700,000 uncommitted votes. However, the organization's goal was thwarted when Ms. Harris's campaign refused to allow a Palestinian American to speak at the Democratic National Convention, while the Gaza war was raging, with tens of thousands of civilians killed and more than 1 million homeless. for Elabed, a Palestinian American whose parents grew up in the West Bank. This result was a bitter pill she had to swallow. As a lifelong Democrat, I feel betrayed. I think what we're seeing shows that the Democratic leadership is out of touch with the grassroots, she said. Elabed said she will skip the presidential portion of the ballot, but plans to vote Democratic in other races in the Senate, House, state legislature, and state Supreme Court. That choice means voting for her sister, Rashida Tlaib, who is running for re-election to the U.S. House of Representatives, representing Michigan's 12th congressional district, which includes Dearborn. Abed Hammoud's ballot sat on his dining room table for weeks before he decided to mark it and put it in the envelope. "It took me a while to think about it before I voted," he said. "I had it for about a month, and it wasn't easy to decide." A former prosecutor, Hammoud, a 58-year-old lawyer, has been active in Michigan politics for years and is the founder of the Arab American Political Action Committee, AAPAC, a group that seeks solutions to important issues affecting the Arab American community. Under normal circumstances, Hammoud would have no hesitation in voting for Harris. "I personally want to support her because she was a prosecutor like me. We have a lot in common. I'm also a Democrat, so I tend to support her," he said. But the conflict in the Middle East makes that impossible. Born and raised in southern Lebanon, Hammoud is no stranger to the horrors of fighting with Israel. "I've lived through many wars, and I've lived under the Israeli occupation," he said, referring to Israel's 18-year war in southern Lebanon from 1982 to 2000. Hammoud's parents, relatives, and wife are all in southern Lebanon. They have been displaced from their homes to avoid Israeli airstrikes. "Bombs literally rained down on the house because this morning Israel bombed my hometown again," he said. Last month, the AAPC announced it would not endorse Trump or Harris, saying they were blindly supporting Israel. Hammoud said he wanted to do everything to punish the current administration in this election, even though he knew in his heart that he would punish himself if Trump became president. He is well aware that his vote in a battleground state could decide who will be the next U.S. president. But Hammoud said the responsibility this time lies with the Democratic candidate. "I have no respect for Trump, but you should look closely at how he is trying to win the support of the Arab community," Hammoud said. "He knows that our votes are decisive, and he wants to win those votes." As Trump met with supporters at the Great Commoner restaurant, Elabed agreed with Hammoud. "It is not my responsibility to convince community members to vote for someone. That is the responsibility of the presidential candidate," she said. "We have been trying to inform the Democratic leadership that we need to win the key vote in Michigan. To do that, we need to change our policy of unconditional support for Israel, but they are not listening."